Welcome to the Orienting webinar on product circularity consistency within design and development. The webinar is really particularly focused on sort of 21 interviews we've done with a range of different companies who are already looking at circularity. So my name is Martin Charter, my colleague's name is Lilian Sanchez Moreno, and we're from UCA, and as I mentioned, part of the Orienting project. So if everybody can remain muted, that's great, and any questions or observations into the chat would be great. So Lilian, maybe could you move it to the next slide from your side? Great. So we're the Centre for Sustainable Design at UCA Business School, and being really involved in a lot of issues around eco-design, resource efficiency, and our circular economy since the mid-90s. Engaged a lot of work around circularity and eco-design and standardization, and particularly engaged in the ISO TC323 work. That's the 5 or 6 standards now on circular economy that are now in development, and recently. Please could everybody remain muted, or else I'll have to mute you.
Just click on the link below.
Sorry, please could everybody remain muted? Thank you. Sorry, could everybody remain muted? Sorry, I'm just going to try and mute the. Right. So, as I say, please could everybody remain muted? I'm not sure who is unmuted at the moment. It just disrupts everybody else's listening. So thank you very much. I'll now pass across to Lilian, who will go into more detail about Orienting and then the details and findings of the project. Thanks for the interviews. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. So I'll go through a brief reminder for Orienting for those who are not familiar. So Orienting is a Horizon 2020, well, a European Commission Horizon 2020 funded project that aims to develop an operational methodology for lifecycle sustainability assessment. So the aim is to integrate the environmental, social, and economic impact, as well as material criticality and product circularity. In terms of the circularity measurements and indicators that will be used for Orienting's LCSA, these are based on existing methodologies and tools which were evaluated earlier in the project. Now going specifically into the interview objectives, these were to gain insight into product-related circularity and product-related social issues within industry that will inform the development of Orienting's LCSA methodology. Also, to better understand the practical considerations being faced by industry when attempting to assess circularity at a product level. Therefore, the interviews focused on design and development, and the companies selected were based on having core circular economy business strategies or an intention to adopt a circular economy strategy. Now, why design and development? As you all may be aware, more than 80% of the environmental impact from the product are determined. Okay. With this in mind, conducting an LCSA at the design and development phase is where it can have the most impact by supporting decisions towards product circularity. In terms of the methodology employed for the interviews, these were qualitative, semi-structured interviews. Now, the rationale for this was that it facilitates an in-depth exploration of product circularity and product social considerations from the perspective of potential users for Orienting's LCSA. Also, qualitative interviews offer an insight into the nuances across different industry sectors in relation to the use of product circularity, product social, and LCA terminology, and it also facilitates a learning approach which allows for the recognition of themes and patterns related to current circular economy strategies within companies that may not necessarily be in the public domain.
Excuse me, sorry, Lillian. Pasquia, please could you mute? Sorry, I think I've been able to hopefully directly mute. Sorry, Lillian.
No problem, thank you. And then in terms of methodology, in order to gain insight to the different design and development stages and decision-making processes, we followed a tiered strategy, which was for the larger companies, the aim was to interview corporate sustainability directors who could provide an overview of the product circularity and product social issues across the various business functions, which would then allow for potential follow-up interviews with specifically design and development. Now, for the startups and SMEs, the aim was to interview either founders or managing directors, as this is where responsibility for sustainability is usually held. We interviewed, so participants were part of the following positions. And in terms of levels of awareness of LCAs at a design and development level, this ranged from basic, medium to expert. Company sizes ranged from startups to SMEs, multinationals across various geographic locations, but primarily held within Europe and the US, with one company headquartered in India. Product categories ranged from final products to intermediate and also hybrid, which has been determined as intermediate and service across the following industries. Going into the findings from these interviews, in terms of product circularity and eco-design, while circular economy and within it product circularity was seen as part of the company's sustainability strategies, activities were somewhat compartmentalized. So while circular economy was primarily found to sit within sustainability, communication business appeared to be fragmented. And also, quite surprisingly, we found that despite highlighting eco-design strategies, very few companies use the term eco-design to convey product circularity initiatives. So this started to raise questions around where has knowledge of eco-design shifted within organizations, where have the professionals around eco-design moved on. So in a way, product circularity appears to be considered as separate to eco-design. So from the 21 interviewees, 20 were not aware of specific eco-design strategies being implemented directly at a design and development level, while one of the participants very clearly stated that designing for the environment, or eco-design, had recently shifted towards designing for circularity. Two further companies also indicated that eco-design principles were not applicable to their product. Martin, do you have any comment?
Not anything specific. So I'm going to try and see if I can mute somebody, but please continue. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Now going directly into the product circularity strategies that were being employed by the companies interviewed. This table shows, we've divided the table into the product circularity strategies that are part of the goals or sustainability goals within the companies, followed by the level of implementation and the actual measurement of the product circularity strategy. So the strategy that is primarily being used is the use of recycled materials and also renewable materials. Within this table, you can see that level of implementation is quite aligned to the strategy, but also to measurement. So, for example, 18 of the companies indicated that increasing the use of recycled materials was within the sustainability goals of the company. Level of implementation, 16, and in terms of measurement, 15 are currently tracking the inflow of recycled materials. But when you start to move away from the use of recycled materials, we can see how level of implementation and also level of measurement starts to decrease. And this is also quite evident in, for example, the use phase. So while the majority of the companies appear to include within their strategies, within their goals to increase repairability, ease of maintenance through disassembly, for example, the level of implementation starts to decrease, and then measurement is down to 0 or 1, 2, which would be the more advanced companies. Martin, do you have any?
Yeah. So in essence, I mean, one of the things that we're finding is that a lot of even large advanced companies are still at the stage of sort of sorting out what they're doing in relation to product circularity. A number of those companies appear to be thinking about the sort of strategies that they would like to adopt, but as yet have not implemented them. And because the strategies have not been implemented yet, they're not measuring it. So really what we've found so far is it's really around what is actually in practice being implemented is these more materials-based strategies using companies incorporating and measuring the use of recycled materials or bio-based materials. So in essence, even with many of the large companies, it's still at things on product circularity are still at an early stage. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Lillian.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. A further finding is in terms of how circularity is defined. So circularity means different things to different people and organizations. It's dependent on the product type, the context, and also the level of awareness and understanding around product circularity related issues. So there is a lack of harmonization of circular economy concepts, and we're also finding that circular design is increasingly becoming synonymous with the use of recycled materials or designing for material recovery. Now, this direct association could potentially hinder the implementation of other product circularity strategies that address the use phase, such as design for repair and reuse. And also that circularity impact assessments that are currently available focus on measuring recycled content and recyclability rates. However, there was an indication from more advanced companies that they have started to challenge the direct association between circularity and recycling, and have started to separate material sustainability initiatives from circularity initiatives and assigning a hierarchy to these strategies. In terms of measuring product circularity, only 2 of the 21 interviewed companies claim to measure circularity using existing external frameworks, and this was with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation's Circulytics or MCI tool. However, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation's tools are are recognised throughout the majority of the companies, and the challenges identified and the rationale for not considering these within the companies is that the single score system and the way in which the system boundaries are defined do not support decision making at a design and development level. 7 of the companies are therefore exploring how to measure circularity beyond recycled inflows and outflows, and are starting to focus on the use phase. 6 companies also stated that they measure product circularity using internal frameworks or are developing internal and product-specific PCA tools and assessing product circularity within standard LCAs or qualitative checklists. In terms of
Lillian, yeah, just a quick comment.
Sorry.
One of the things that's becoming, quite clear from the interviews and some of our broader conversations is quite clearly many companies, whether it's B2B, B2C, are often sort of selling into the chain, and really there is quite a significant lack of awareness of the use phase on products and services. And therefore, this is a constraint to really looking at some of the models around repair, refurbishment, etc. So once we sort of get out in the sense of the control around the materials into the sort of loop stage, if you like, then it's really exposing that a lot of companies really don't know how how customers use their products. So and that certainly is being seen as a constraint. Also, the fact that it's quite a jump to look at, take back schemes, etc., is looking at new stakeholders. So I think that's just another observation. The lack of use phase data is a constraint to broader circularity models. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Related to indicators and metrics, so as mentioned previously, the focus is on the weight of recycled content or bio-based materials, but also the percentage of internally recovered waste and the weight of recovered materials at the end of life. There's 1 or 2 companies that are focusing on repairability by quantifying the time it takes to, for example, dismantle a product and its economic feasibility. The barriers identified for implementing product circularity were primarily the trade-offs between the product circularity strategies, cost, maintaining functionality, product performance, and consumer expectations, but also the aesthetics around sustainability, customer and market demand. So is the customer ready for the aesthetics around sustainability? Key drivers for product circularity found to be policy, consumer demand, and cost. Now, going on to the key learnings from the interviews for the development of Orienting's LCSA is that there is a need for increased clarity around the types of product circularity, product social decisions that are being made by stakeholders involved in the design and development process. And also that the companies that are currently using existing frameworks for measuring product circularity are using these for tracking purposes and not necessarily for supporting design decisions. Also, we found that there's a need for a multi-level approach, as there were different levels of awareness around LCAs, product circularity within the participating interviewees. With this in mind, and to develop a multi-level approach, UCA has also started to develop an entry-level sort of product circularity assessment starter checklist to support the early implementation of circular design strategies within design and development. The checklist aims to offer an introductory perspective on the benefits of integrating a product circularity assessment within an LCSA study. So this is a diagram of where the product circularity assessment would fit within the overall sustainability domains. And the company uses for this would be decision-making at a design and development process, identifying potential improvements for product circularity performance, and start to consider the secondary impacts of an organization's product circularity performance across the economic, environmental, and social domains. Now, this is work in progress, but this is an outline of the steps for the entry level product circularity assessment. So at a very basic level, there would be guidance around lifecycle thinking and the selection of relevant product circularity strategies. Once the product for assessment has been selected, one would start to map out the different lifecycle phases and qualitatively, through a checklist, start to map potential environmental impacts within each stage. Once this is completed, the user would start to align it with a standard LCA so that it could then feed into the overall LCSA. So the user would start to define the goal and the scope, conduct a materiality assessment in terms of identifying the most significant environmental, economic, and social impacts associated with the selected product circularity strategies, identify internal stakeholders that should be involved and whom the results should be communicated to, as well as the stakeholder groups that would be affected by the implementation of these strategies. Then the user would either continue with the design process if the data collected during this assessment is sufficient, or if deemed necessary, would continue with the LCSA, and it's an iterative process, so they could always go back and forth between the different domains. So the next step for this is to trial these pilots trial these pilots and develop the methodology further, but we are also interviewing WBCSD members that have explicitly used CTI 2.0 in order to assess if the use of the WBCSD's CTI has any influence within the design and development process. Martin, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify, that sort of last slide of it is that we're essentially starting to develop this piloting approach, and we're developing a mechanism to engage with companies. And indeed, we've just today had our first sort of engagement with a sustainable clothing company who is starting to collaborate with us and starting to sort of help work through the process, but also help identify issues for them. So, and then separate to that, almost to sort of clarify the research. In addition to the 21 depth interviews we've done, we're also collaborating with the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, who's produced the CTI version 3 tool, to do research with companies who've used that tool to sort of see if there's any difference between the two groups. And the final result of this will be a report and then a paper that we'll be writing up. So So we're sort of happy to also, on the piloting of the methodology, the checklist starter methodology, we're happy to talk to companies who might be interested in collaborating with us to sort of test that approach and just explore the use of that, but also bringing in the broader orienting approach within that as well, because the overall methodology, orienting triple bottom line methodology, if you like, is presently out for review. And I think many of you will be aware of that already. So I think there's a couple of points came up. We will forward, that was my comment there. So yes, we're recording this and we will send on the links to everybody. The new version of CTI version 3 is out. Yes, was out last week. Yes, connecting circularity metrics to so we're in quite close collaboration with World Business Council, and there are a number of new sort of updates that are coming through that, as Chiara has mentioned, the link to GHG. There's also this strategic scenarios tool, and I think there's a number of other aspects that will be coming on stream, particularly more to do with life cycle extension. But as we understand it, that is still to be sort of launched officially into the tool. So that actually is interestingly an area that we're also picking up, is just the challenge as well around the development of the metrics around product longevity, durability. Both WBCSD are still working their way through the most appropriate metrics for this. This is also proved to be a sort of challenging area in the working group 3 of TC323 that's focusing on measuring circularity, how to measure this sort of longevity, durability issues. A lot of the metrics and indicators are not set in stone. So this is an evolving area. So, so do we have any other questions or comments in the, does anybody would be interested to ask a question? Make an observation? If you are from a company, are our findings in line with your experience? Are we missing something? Is there, an aspect of this you disagree with? Any comments? Anybody want to make a comment or a question either about the product circularity or the orienting methodology? Because I think we also have other colleagues on the call from the team. So it's an opportunity to ask more questions. So what is the difference between LCSA and LCA? I'll have a go at this, but if Mauro wanted to join the conversation. So the orienting LCSA methodology really is looking to bring together existing environmental life cycle tools alongside social LCA tools and life cycle costing to produce a more integrated model, exactly as Mauro's put in the chat there, to enable companies to consider all of the 3 areas and potentially to consider the trade-offs, or implications. You might make a decision from an environmental perspective, but how does that sort of impact on social and economic issues? So it's quite dynamic. It's very complex, and we have some of the sort of leading LCA experts in Europe involved in the project. I don't know, Mauro, if it's an opportunity maybe for you to just make a quick comment if you want to unmute yourself.
Thanks, Martin. In any case, you already provided a clear answer. So basically, the lifecycle assessment is addressing the environmental pillar of sustainability. So it aims to assess environmental impact along the life cycle of a product. And with the LCSA, so lifecycle sustainability assessment, the goal is to assess not only the environmental dimension of sustainability, but also social and the economic impact. So this is represented in this oversimplistic equation that LCSA is the sum of, or better, the combination of LCSA, social LCA, and life cycle costing. And of course, as Martin and Lilian have described today with this presentation, then Orienting also aims to address circularity and criticality aspects, so that at the end, a methodology is readily available that can allow for the integrated assessment of different domains and topics of sustainability as represented in this slide. Thanks for showing it.
Great, and the methodology, the colleagues in the project have put a lot of hard work into producing quite a detailed methodology that is now out for sort of comments. I think, is it until the 28th, Mauro? 28th of May for comments?
Yeah, it is at the 27th of May.
Okay. Okay, so if people who are on the call haven't come through the Orienting networks and are interested to be directed towards that, please drop us an email and we'll forward that to the team to follow up, or we can send directly the link to to where you can sort of download and comment on the methodology. So there's a question here from Villas. I'm interested in the aspect of packaging, typically not saved. Sorry, it disappeared right in front of me. Typically not saved even if it's usable. So packaging is not saved even if it's usable, reusable. Still a key to enable circularity of a product or a component. Yeah, we do have within the project one of the big global packaging companies, and I think there will be pilots going on, more detailed pilots going on within a range of different partner companies. So these issues will be explored in more detail, with the partners. But absolutely, packaging is big issue, both as a sector and aligned to product. And often I remember back from my old eco-design days, it's an area not just of environmental impact, but an opportunity to innovate from a cost-saving point of view as well. Yes, packaging is going to be considered in relation to the project, and indeed, yes, many opportunities to look at circular innovation there, if you like. So do we have other questions, other thoughts? Something we've missed, something you've still got some aspect of this we haven't covered. Circular Food Pack is currently looking at circularity of PE films. Yeah, it's one aspect of many things that are out there and part of the challenges we're seeing. A lot of materials, circularity starting to impact on new materials development, and particularly around polymers in various aspects, because of the drivers associated with the Single-Use Plastics Directive from Europe. So yes, many issues around plastics, polymers, food packaging, etc. So what again we're looking at, just to clarify, within Orienting, and then within that, the specific focus on product circularity, is we're looking at this from a sort of organizational and a design and development level. We're sort of less engaged in more specific projects. It's really to provide methodologies and approaches to support companies to make improved sustainability decisions, environmental, social, and economic, in relation to their products and services, and also more specifically to help and support companies think through the product circularity aspects of that. And then hopefully within 18 months to try and join it all up so that then a company can sort of start to see how their product circularity aspects align with the broader sustainability aspects of their design and development. Did representative companies of the construction sector participate in interviews? One for you, Lillian.
Yes. So the answer is yes. And in terms of circularity, the company is aware that it's a very recyclable material. 90% does get recycled, but the issues they have around tracking circularity is access to data, because once it leaves the factory, they no longer have traceability as to where it ends, and also in terms of construction, this can always be returned in, I don't know, 100 years. So in terms of tracking that type of circularity within the construction sector, I think that's quite a challenge.
And just building on that point, yeah, that's one of the challenges coming out of this, is the whole sort of life cycle of products. We went through a conversation earlier today where, particularly if you're looking at fast fashion or clothing, maybe the life cycle of the product, or at least on, first life, could be 3 months, whereas Lillian said with a building it could be 100 years. So there's this whole challenge of, predicting the lifetime of the product. We can sort of predict the lifetime of the product at the design stage, but then what is the actual lifetime of the product? So this is a different part of the challenges of adapting these tools to the different characteristics of different products and different markets. So any other thoughts, observations, questions, points that you'd like to pick up on? As we're now down to sort of 17 people, if somebody wanted to open their mic and want to make a specific observation or a question, please feel free to do it. There will be other opportunities to engage on the Orienting approaches. I believe we've got other workshops that will be emerging in as we move forward on the product circularity aspects. We're trying to evolve this starter approach, and dependent on interest, we may run maybe a specific session looking at the details of that. And indeed, if reinforcing again, if people are interested to engage with that, please come back to us. So I don't know your first name, but Villas, do you want to unmute?
Hi.
Yeah.
I'm muted. Hi, Martin Villas. Thank you.
Yes.
My question, also Martin.
Yeah.
My question is regarding what sort of to address, because we come from electronics, and typically the PCB, the circuit board, is over 50% of our lifecycle assessment impact. But we have a very hard time being sort of creative on that level, or maybe address key components there. But we also have a very hard time gathering data there. So it's easy for us to get sort of stuck there on deciding what the horns on the on the cow is to sort of jump on and try to be creative around in the product development. So I'm very interested in understanding sort of how to sort of block out parts of the data collection, or how to sort of create an early rationale on where to be creative in terms of what problem to actually address in a creative process, so to say, or development process.
I mean, maybe I'll have a crack at this, Lillian, first, and then please chip in. I mean, I think what you're saying, Martin, and I remember Martin and your transparent speakers, is so in a sense you're looking at where your point of sort of leverage might be in almost hotspotting to identify where you might be able to make a difference, and I think these are some of the issues that we're starting to unpack a bit with our starter checklist approach. I think a lot of it is going to be about getting good data. The challenge is, many of in the electronics sector, the challenge is getting good data, because a lot of the component guys and PCB guys have a lot of power. So they may not necessarily answer all your questions as you might wish, I can imagine. I don't have a direct answer to your question, but certainly these are the sort of questions that we'd be really keen to explore within some sort of collaboration with the starter approach. And this is something we're starting to think about how we go forward on, and looking at sort of NDAs to work directly with the companies to be able to share data confidently. But we're also realizing for many of the companies, a lot of these things are, there aren't magic bullets. So what we've observed so far is it's an opportunity to help think through some of these issues maybe. But also, I think the unique element is because we're the circularity aspect will be integrated with the overall sustainability methodology. It's how does this then link back into the broader environmental, social, economic dimensions. So possibly not a specific direct answer, but if you're interested to have a conversation about how we might collaborate, bringing in, the starter checklist and the broader orienting methodologies, drop us an email and we can fix a chat. Okay, great. So yeah, but again, the hotspotting thing is quite an interesting idea. How do you identify where you can have most leverage? I think it's a really good point, and I can see where you're coming from on this. So do we have any other questions, observations, thoughts? Again, if people don't want to put chats out in public domain or say things in the public domain, please feel free to follow up with a direct email and we'd be happy to have a conversation. So do we have any other, comments, or anybody want to raise their hand, ask a question? If not, like podcasts and broadcasting, I won't allow for dead time. So I think unless there's a burning question or comment, everybody's increasingly tight for time. So I think we can finish up a little bit early. And I'd like to thank everybody very much for their active participation. And please email Lillian, maybe if you just bring up your email very quickly, and I can sort of talk for another 30 seconds so people can just scribble down your email, but I think you should have Lillian's email if you've registered. So thanks very much, and yeah, we encourage you to engage with us on product circularity and orienting more broadly. And thank you very much, and have a good rest of the afternoon or evening or morning, wherever you're coming in from. So thanks very much, and see you sometime in the future.
Thank you, everyone.